So a very warm welcome to everyone for the Solar Chat November. It's great to see everyone, and again from America we've got Australia, we've got the UK, and Rich, where are you from?
U.S.
I see you're from the
Cincinnati,
US as well.
down the street from Peter almost.
Ah, right, okay.
From
I mean
me.
Warren.
Wow.
Warren.
That's a long street, Rich, if you're down the street.
Yeah, and I can't swim that fast either.
Oh, well, a very warm welcome to you, Rich.
Thank
And I
you.
think we've just got Brian from Canada as well, so we're all over the world today.
Good.
Martin from Australia is apologising. He sent me a message earlier. They lost power last night, so he can't get on from the
Oh,
storm.
dear.
So.
Right.
We just have rain today. No storms, but quite a bit of rain. We needed it.
Yeah. We need rain here, but not in the
Not
amounts
like
we got
that,
last night.
Not like that.
We've got that horrible sticky rain, as we call it, where it's really fine drizzle.
Oh,
It's just horrible. Been grey and miserable today. But nice tomorrow.
I took my daughter to see the Paddington Bear movie, and in the Paddington Bear movie, they talk about the 150 ways to describe rain in England. Loved it.
Yes.
Thought it was great.
Okay, so there was a couple of discussion points, I think, on the forum. One was to discuss how people fine-tune their hydrogen alpha etalons. Probably, I suspect, particularly double stack ones. So I don't know, because there's different ones. So we've got heated etalons, we've also got double stack ones, single stack, we've got pressure tuned, we've got tilt tuned, and I've never quite understood the difference, between all of these rich tune ones of Coronado. I'm not sure, are they still tilt tuned or are they something different? I'm not sure, but if anybody has any tips or tricks how they tune theirs, it would be grateful if we could discuss it.
yeah. That came up when I went over to help Rich with his 80 millimeter, and I've never touched a pressure tune before, so I was interested to see how it was, and so different from tilt, and trying to get it onto band. We started out with it on single stack, and we got it to where we could see the filaments and stuff, but it was still not what I was used to from a contrast standpoint. And we had the piston pretty much cranked in fairly tight. And that kind of surprised me, because I would think at our altitude, which is, just about 800 feet, we wouldn't need it that much. And when we did put the double stack on, we were able to get most of the disc to where it looked like it was in tune, but it's still, and I don't know, Rich, if you've seen differences, the filaments just never really got as dark as I had hoped we could get them.
Well, with Peter and Ralph's help, I've made quite a bit of improvement, at least in my opinion. And I'm learning that I need to run flats religiously. That seems to be part of the reason I had extra darkening. And I'm pretty happy with what I shot in the 5 minutes of sunlight we had yesterday. But, I probably made more progress in the last week than I have in the 7 or 8 months that I've owned the scope. So I'm no longer going to send it back to Arizona. And
so I use a pressure tuner. Maybe I can just start the conversation off with some of my experience with it. If that would help, Warren, Rich.
Yes, I'd love it.
Okay, so what you have to do every so often is re-equilibrate the piston, the pressure inside. So basically unscrew the pressure tuner until you just hear a slight hiss sound. Don't take it all out completely, for heaven's sake, but just loosen it off, unscrew it until you hear this little fizz, and it's either air going in or air coming out, depending on where the pressure is. But obviously, atmospheric pressure changes, you know, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, whatever. So when you do that, when you relieve the pressure, you can then screw it back in, and then you start to increase the pressure on the etalon and you know, allow it to be tuned. Because sometimes you bottom out, which it sounds like you were pretty close to doing when you were using your pressure tuner. If makes sense, is that
You're
helpful?
breaking up, Stuart.
Kind of froze.
Oh, you're frozen.
Oh, there he is.
Okay. How much of that did you get? Any?
We
Right,
got
I'm
to
gonna-
the burping the tuner and
Okay. All right. What
and
I'm going to do,
doing it often.
I'm going to come out and then come back in again because I've got a booster. I need to initiate the booster. So you carry on, and I'll come back.
Okay.
Did
So-
you hear the sound, Rich?
No, and I was going to mention that.
Yeah.
First of all, the tuning now, I'm just using the single stack, and when I turn it in, I'm not nearly as far as we were when you were there.
Okay.
The last thread is pretty much visible on the way in, and I'm noticing that it's far more sensitive than I have ever realized, and so I'm slowly moving it. And then the other thing is I take it completely off the knob, and I've never heard anything. Now we've got some road noise, and there's always some breeze out here, but I've never heard a fizz or a pop. And my understanding of the mechanism, as you relieve the pressure, as you unscrew it, you're automatically relieving the pressure. So at the end there, I can't imagine that it's going to be a whole lot of air pressure in there when I finally pull that knob off. But
Yeah, there is.
go ahead.
There is. It should be quite distinct.
It is
Ralph,
distinct.
Oh yeah, yeah, quite distinct.
You're a bit breaking up there, Ralph. Can you? You're right.
I'm
I've got the
always like that.
LS80.
I know you're right. Yeah.
Go on, Brian.
I'll finish if he's.
Oh,
Well, okay, sorry. Well, I'm breaking up again, am I?
No, you're
no,
good
it's
now.
better
Yep.
now.
Good now.
Oh, okay. What was I saying? See, I've forgotten already. No, Rich, it should be a distinct sound. Perhaps, how's your hearing? Is it a little bit off or?
No, it's pretty good actually.
Well, pay particular attention. Screw the tuner right in, and then screw it out, and put your ear reasonably close, and you should hear.
Okay. Now I have a question, another question on that. And people said maybe I need to replace the O-rings, and I did call Lunt, and they said they'd be very surprised, as new as my unit is, that the O-rings are bad. But
I would be too.
Yeah, I'd be
I would
surprised as
very
well.
surprised.
okay. But and
Now,
so then
there's the white paraffin grease there. Is it gone hard, or is it quite soft and pliable?
it's pretty, it's there, and it's what I see on the plunger. It's soft still.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
No, that's fine.
One other observation along these lines is when I first replaced the plunge, I'm calling it a plunger. I don't know. I'll call it a tuner. When I replace the tuner and start turning it in, it turns pretty easily for maybe 2 or maybe 3 millimeters, and then it starts to stiffen up. Is that typical, or should it be hard to turn right away?
No, that's quite difficult because what you're doing is compressing the air inside, which is moving the etalon.
Right.
So yeah, no, that's normal.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is normal.
And then the other question is, you just answered my question, I guess. Do the etalons actually move, or are you just changing the refractive index of the air with the pressure?
I believe they move.
Yeah, they're being compressed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
They're-
putting pressure. It's similar to Fabiosa was talking about that with the new scope that has come out that Lunt had a patent on that it puts pressure on the etalon. As a matter of fact, he has a what they call it, basically a tuning thing where he puts some rings inside to put pressure on an etalon to, he could explain it much better, but it makes it so you don't have to put so much tilt to the etalon to come on band, which helps. So it is that pressure that's changing.
Okay. And then as the spring that loaded or something that comes back,
No, I think it's just the compression of the mica between the
Okay.
glass.
Because I'm wondering, since I'm not hearing any noise, I'm wondering whether I'm not getting the proper movement, that it's binding somehow.
No.
But
I don't think you are. I think what's happening is it's like me. Um, background noise can have an effect on it. Okay, so to be quite honest, I don't hear a lot. I can hear a slight noise, but I don't hear a lot. But I know whatever's happening is happening. But there's a lot of background noise when I'm taking it off. If I do that, take it off. So that can probably have some effect on it too. So I probably um, I wouldn't be convinced that that's not doing that, that it's not
okay.
releasing the pressure or changing the pressure. I think it's maybe more that you maybe the if there is background noise around you like I've got, maybe you don't hear it as much. Um, I'm not over. I wouldn't be overly concerned about that at the moment.
Well,
Not with such a new
yeah.
scope like you've got.
Well, I'll put my ear up to it, and people, my neighbors already think I'm crazy looking at through a telescope
Yeah,
in the
we've all
daytime.
got that.
Now they're going to say that I'm instead of looking, I'm listening, and that's definitely not right.
I want to be, I was going to say, I want to be over there the day you have all your rigs out in the driveway at one time.
I've had 3 of them out once, so
yeah.
So apologies, I had to switch to a booster. Where I am in the house, one router doesn't really work very well. So anyway, I missed part of the conversation. So Rich, what happens when you screw the pressure tuner in from its maximum outward position? Do you see on the screen a change in the appearance of the solar disk? Do you start to see a change in brightness? Do you start to see the filaments appear?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I do. And I see, I think Warren called it the orange peel effect. I'll get
Okay.
that first. And the day after he was here helping me, I quickly was able to see the sunspots and then very fine filaments. I was pretty happy with it, but I still had some bad areas that were dark. I call it dark modeling. And I think Peter suggested I was, in the visible light spectrum. I wasn't quite
Oh, right. Okay.
to be. But
yeah, when you have no pressure, when there's no pressure on the etalon, you're basically getting a white light view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like a deep red filtered white light view. But then as you start putting pressure on, as that piston compresses, you'll see the disk brightness start to change. So you're constantly fiddling with exposure and adjusting until you get the filaments ideally as dark and contrasty as you can. And I mean, I've had a 80 millimeter Lunt pressure tune for 12 plus years, and It's pretty, I don't hear a pop or any, very little noise when I take the pressure off. And if I completely remove or just let the pressure off, I leave it tuned, close the observatory up, go back the next day. I very seldom have to change it unless we get into when I do hear a pressure is if it was cooler weather, so I've had to crank the piston down a bit to get it to tune. And then I may not go back out for a week. And if it happens to be a significantly warmer day, so it could be 20 degrees warmer the next time I go out, and I have to let pressure off, I can hear a bit of a air sound when I release it and reset it that way. But from day to day, I wouldn't expect to hear a whole lot of pressure change.
Yeah.
Even with my hearing aids in.
You know, not day to day, but you know, over time, obviously we have atmospheric pressure changes, and every so often I do have to reset mine and you know, get the on band more in the middle of the range.
It's a good excuse for doing some visual astronomy too at the time. So when I do mine, I like to be looking at the sun, and I've gotten to know where that spot is that I feel that I'm pretty well on band, and so I like doing it visually.
Yeah. So early on, someone like 2 weeks ago, someone suggested that I put the camera away and start out with just my eyepiece. And that's what I'm doing now. And that made a huge difference in terms of how fast I got close and how my frustration level was way down using the eyepiece first. But I had one other question. Somebody was talking about tuning just a minute ago with, they talked about exposure. It seems to me that now I've got the camera connected because, you know, I've gotten close with the eyepiece, the camera's hooked up. I'm surprised what I'm seeing, that the exposure seems to affect the tuning. Does that make any sense at all? If I've got either too high a gain or too long of an exposure, it changes whether it's on tune or not. That doesn't make sense though.
No.
Well, as you tune though,
I don't think it's the tuning. I think it's if you've got the gain up too high, you're going to have issues there.
Okay.
Yeah, because as you tune, you're adjusting the center wavelength. So then the camera is you're getting more light or less light depending on how close to the center band you are. So then your exposure, you're overexposing when you're letting more light through, and you're underexposing when you let less light through. And if you switch to a double stack system, then your light throughput drops immensely again. So then you need to adjust the exposure.
So as I'm tuning the knob inward, increasing the air pressure, it's going to be getting darker. I'll need more exposure.
Yes.
Generally. Okay.
Because quite a lot of people tend to know whether they're on band or not, because you'll see that it goes much, much darker. So you'll suddenly see this rapid drop off of light. And then when you go through center line and out the other side, suddenly the light will start coming up again. So you're looking, when you're on single stack, you're looking for the darkest spot that you've got in the camera. Whereas when you add a double stack onto that, then it's completely different. What you're then looking for is the brightest area. So you'll find that if you put a double stack up, well, if you get your single stack in tune first and you've gone for the darkest area, when you add the double stack onto it, it'll be very, very dark. And so you then tune for the brightest part of the area. So it's like exactly the opposite, but that I've only got a tilt etalon, so I don't know how that changes when you've got maybe a double pressure tune.
It's a different animal.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and if you're doing a double stack pressure tune or a pressure tune primary etalon with a front tilt tuned one, they're again another creature of its own frustrations.
Yeah.
Well, the other advice I got was keep the double stack in the cabinet, well protected, and get my story straight with just the single. And that was also good advice, because I would jump to get the second one on there, and the wheels fell off my wagon whenever that happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like
Well, this all
everything. A
helps.
bit of practice makes a big difference. So it shouldn't be too long getting the single stack part working, and then
Mhm.
try the double stack. And it's just good. What I was a bit late coming in. What's your scope? Pressure tune 50, 60?
It's the LS80.
Oh, so you got the same one I do. Is it the new one, the modular scope?
Yeah.
Okay, I've got the older version that's dedicated to solar, but that's from solar, they're going to be the same.
Yeah, I don't know that I'll ever use the modular capability. I wish they just kept it solar only, but not to be found.
Yeah, Brian, question on yours. Do you have your etalons like 180, the pistons 180 degrees apart or lined up, or how do you do yours?
Well, on my 80 millimeter scope, I primarily use it for full disc, but I've got the front mount 75 millimeter etalon.
Okay.
For my double stack. Now, my mod has a pair of the DS2 pressure tuners, but I don't have them. I usually just rotate them enough that my knuckles don't get in the way of one when I'm trying to tune the other. So
that's a good point.
And I know I've seen where people have them clocked in places marked where you have to rotate one relative to the other, and I haven't found a significant difference in it. So part of that is I need another set of hands so I can undo stuff and rotate it and look without the chance of having something fall off, land on my feet. So, but I've very seldom done it any more than 20 degrees apart. And then I've also had them set up with the pressure tuning remotely, like with a compressed air source. And at which case I don't need to worry about my knuckles. It's just logistics of getting tubing and stuff to them. But I haven't used them for years because I have problems with the electronics, and I've just gone to manual. And I haven't used the homebrew double stack for probably 6 months. Just logistics of using that same scope for nighttime use, and I'm too lazy to keep switching it back and forth.
Yeah, I wondered about that because I talked to Rich about that, and I'll be the first to admit I had my double stack for about 5 years before I realized I didn't really have it well tuned. And that's when I think it was Mark had told me try clocking my other etalon, my front etalon. Man, I started to clock it and I went, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And then I've got a retainer ring that's made out of a paper plate between, so it holds it in place where I want it, and I don't have to touch it anymore.
What
Peter,
about, I have a question. What about shifting of the tuning with temperature? I mean, if you start in the morning with a cold morning and then it becomes warm, does it shift?
I go through some pretty hot weather here sometimes, and mine doesn't seem to shift. I think it's more to do with pressure.
Mine doesn't either.
Yeah, and Ralph does long animations as well. So, and we are in hot temperatures, so I haven't had a big issue. If there's a massive pressure change, perhaps, but temper. And the other thing, actually, one thing on that, I don't know that Ralph does, but I keep my. You probably see all the silver steering wheel covers around my pressure tuners and everything, and around my back end of my scope. And I learnt that from one of the guys over on Cloudy Nights, Marty Wise, in covering up everything when it's hot out there, because he's in pretty hot weather. And so I do that. I don't know what effect that has, but I just started doing it, and yeah, I don't think temperature's been a big issue for me.
Whereas I've found temperature to be a very big difference for my solar scope. It's terrible. If it's at midsummer, really, really hot, it's great, no problem at all. But in winter or spring or autumn, if it's like below 20 degrees outside, I have, great difficulties getting it on in tune, properly. I usually keep my solar scope in the house in the warm until all of the telescope is completely set up. I'm virtually pointing at the sun virtually before I add all of the solar scope and the equipment to it, and then get it on the sun as fast as possible so that the solar heat is going through the telescope to be able to try and maintain that heat temperature. And then if I get a cloud that just goes over the sun for like 10 minutes, I've had it.
Yeah.
I'll never get, it on band again.
Really?
Yeah.
That's strange.
Is that more the blocking filter
I
than
think it is the
because
blocking
I
filter.
know, and I was always surprised that Brian would talk about, where he's at and not have issues with the cold, but I can watch the filaments just disappear. No amount of tuning does anything to bring them back. They just kind of fade. So I, even with, I'll put the heater on it, but if it's really cold out, it's just, I can watch them over about an hour time. It's like, well, that filament lifted off. No, it didn't. It's just disappeared.
Yeah, because I've done a test actually with mine in the winter. I think it was like either last winter or the winter before. And I had, a lot of cloud cover for about 30 minutes or so. And I could feel that the actual blocking filter was like icy cold. So I went and got a hairdryer and really heated it up to a really hot temperature. And I could just see it on the screen, just popping on band. Absolutely amazing. And it had to be a really hot temperature before it was like incredible.
It's a good
I have
trick.
the answer. Move to Australia. Alexander.
Yes.
Come and join us.
Well,
But
well, in the wintertime, I'm constantly imaging, 3 degrees, and I don't have that problem. But are you talking about a lunt etalon?
This is a solar
Oh,
scope.
sorry,
She
a
has
lunt.
solar, I've got lunt.
Yeah, okay.
but
I do not use a lunt blocking filter. I've tried two. Faye sent me a second one that was supposed to be fixed. I use the Coronado blocking filter, BF30, in the lunt, and the two are chalk and cheese.
Well, yeah,
So,
saying that as well,
I
I
did the same,
remember
yeah.
that Ken came to visit my house and he had a range of blocking filters. And he said to me, this is what this looks like with my best blocking filter. And then he took that out and put another blocking filter in. And the solar landscape was completely different.
Yep.
It wasn't as on band as it was before and everything like that. So I think that it really does make a difference, the actual blocking filter. And sometimes, like people can say, oh, I've got a rubbish etalon, I'm not getting many surface details and it looks really rubbish. But actually, it might not be the actual etalon itself. It might be that your blocking filter is just rubbish and not well matched.
more than likely, yeah.
Yeah, I've got the same experience. I took out the lunt blocking filter from my lunt 60 and used a Coronado for the same reason. Chalk and cheese, absolutely chalk and cheese. Much better with the Coronado.
And I don't know whether there's any effect if you have a diagonal version of the blocking filter, that prism that gives you the right angle is influenced by the cold. But like I've got a diagonal version of a B1200 lunt and a straight through 1800, and that's the one I use 99% of the time. But I don't do anything different at the coldest, the minus 26 Celsius when I've imaged, as I do when it's plus 35.
Huh.
And for whatever reason, I'm going to touch wood, like mine is working all right, but I don't have to heat it, or if I leave it out, it's at constant ambient temperature more or less. So not running into cases where the I'm bringing it out of a house where it's hot and bring it out into the cold when it's warm's all right, because it's not going to do up. It'll just need time to cool down. But so far I've been lucky with the super cold or super warm. And I mean, yesterday I imaged it was 4 or 5 degrees Celsius in the morning, and it worked with no difference apart from having to adjust some pressure tuning to match the double stack. And that's been the limit on the one I have.
Yeah, I don't have any issues with from a cold point of view, where I live in Queensland, which is north of Sydney by about 1,000 kilometres, and north of Ralph. By the time the sun's up in winter here, it's still reasonably a nice sunny day is generally pretty warm outside. So, I mean, really, I can't comment on any cold, observing in the cold, but I have the diagonal blocking filter, the B1800, and ever since I had that repaired by Lunt when I had some issues with it, it's been absolutely perfect. So if anything, I might consider going to a straight through one. After discussions with Ralph, I'm still looking at doing that. But yeah, I've never seen any change due to temperature. But again, mine it's either hot or very hot here.
When it gets this cold, sometimes I'm shooting through my window inside.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Oh, that's quite amazing. That is
One problem
actually.
I've had with blocking filters, because I have an observatory setup, and it's a wooden shed that I roll off. The whole shed rolls back, so my telescopes are outside. And the very first setup I had with the blocking filter, I left it in the observatory in the telescope, and within about a year, I'd ruined it. It just rusted. It
Wow.
oxidized. So what I do now is I still keep them in the observatory, but I take them out and put them in a little plastic box with a desiccant. So that seems to suffice for me. And then when I go out imaging, within a few seconds, it's back in, cameras in, and I'm away. But if you let water get to them, it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But I guess you don't have problems with cold, Andy, in Spain.
Sometimes it gets right down to 10 Celsius.
Oh dear.
Oh, luxury. No, humidity does cause that very front element at the telescope side to rust or corrode, whatever you want to call it. And I have replaced that front element probably twice. It seems to be about once every 5 years to fix it. And it's easy to fix. And I just email Brian at Lunt, and he sends me a couple of replacement ones and screw them off, put the new glass in, screw it back on, and good to go.
Yeah, I think the new blue-green filters from Lunt are have been I think they've done something to them so that the humidity, because I know there was a lot of issues in Australia with humidity, and so I think they might have done something with those. But I'm about to get, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, from Oliver at Veloptic, my KG3 put into because obviously gain is my issue when I'm using double stack. So what I want to do is bring my gain down. So just curious, is anybody else here actually using a KG3 in their blocking filter at this stage? Anybody? No, okay.
I might be.
You might be?
Because the last replacements that Brian sent me, he sent me a KG3 and the standard one. And
Okay.
I can't remember which one I put in, and they're not well labeled. They were in a Ziploc bag, and I'm not sure which one I put in.
So
Okay.
Are we talking about the blocking filter or the little ERF?
Yeah, that goes into the blocking filter. It replaces the VG filter, the one from that I'm getting from Bell Optic.
Yeah, but it's in front of the red filter. Yeah. I've just taken it out. I don't need it.
Okay.
Where do you need it? If
Well,
on the DS.
I do visually on it. So
right, okay. Yeah. Never.
It cuts infrared, so if you're just imaging, it'll be less of a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My homebrew scopes, I never stick an eyeball on it. It's all imaging.
Yeah. I like to have a look at the sun every now and then and take in what I see there. So I've just left it the way it is with that. But I have ordered the KG3, and that, from what I understand, will allow me to bring my gain down fairly significantly when imaging. So,
but when we talk about rusting, it's that element rather than anything to do with the red filter. That rust. Yeah.
Look, the red filter, I had issues. I've had two blocking filters with the two lunts that I've had, and both of the red element, or as they call it, the sandwich filter. That's what Lunt call it, the sandwich filter. I had issues with both of those, and the way you know you've got an issue, aside from things starting to not look like they should on the sun, is when you shine a very, very intense LED light source through the diagonal and onto that, and you look down on it, and I've posted pictures before, but it starts to look like a petri dish where you've got lots of little black blobs everywhere. And what that is, that's where the humidity has caused the glue inside to form little blobs.
Right.
And so that's, as I understand it, that's a return to Lunt for them to fix that. So, and it's not cheap. It's about $180 US to have that red one replaced. But that, from what I understand, there was a lot of people, or the number of people in Australia who'd had issues with that, and it was to do with humidity.
Right. Okay.
The Coronado weren't any better for that.
Oh, for the rust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, they had the same problem. Both my BF30 have been modified to fix that.
If you get a Coronado blocking filter, hang on to it, particularly if it's from the older Solarmax days. I wish I'd never, ever sold mine. Geez, you have some regrets in life, but that was a beautiful. When I was having issues with my Lunt, I was able to use. I used the Coronado from the Solarmax 40 that I had, and that's when I really knew I had issues with the Lunt blocking filter. But the difference, even when they were both working, the Coronado was just really lovely to use.
Yeah, well, the reason why both are having the problem is, and that's simple, because Andy Lunt was involved with Coronado, of course.
Yep.
Initially, he designed it, so, and he just simply took that design with him when he started Lunt.
The scope I'm using is a very old Solarmax 90, number 9 on production run, and it still works lovely.
Yep.
Mm.
Yeah.
Don't ever get rid of that.
Definitely not.
I think the other thing to mention. Sorry, Andy, go on. Or was it Ralph?
No, you're right, sure.
Okay, just another thing to say about blocking filters, because I think this is a great discussion, especially for anybody watching the recording who may not be completely au fait with these things. The angle of the blocking filter is important as well. It's really important to be perpendicular to the light cone. Otherwise, you do get some sort of gradation across the image. I don't think people generally consider that too much. Again, they think it's always the etalon, and it may not be. So it's just something else to consider, because quite often there's a lot of weight on the back of a scope, you know, big camera and a long lens, especially on a Franken scope, you know, and that can tilt the blocking filter relative to the axis, you know, the light cone axis, which will affect its performance. So I think it's just important just to mention that.
Yeah, it's like even in the days of people who did deep sky imaging, planetary, whatever. One of the things you got to have is a good focuser, a good solid focuser that will take some weight, because you will be adding a bit of weight to the back of it. So, but just to go back to Rich at the moment, because that's probably what sparked this. I think this discussion from Warren, which is great because I've actually learned quite a bit myself actually here. So I think what Ralph and I have seen from some of the images he sent us, he certainly made some progress, some really good progress actually, Rich, in the last week or so, and so there's some other people here as well who also know their stuff. So I guess it's don't be shy to reach out, because there's plenty of people here, Alexandra, everybody here, who more than happy to give good constructive feedback on where you go from here with your images.
Okay, good. I'll post some pictures as I get the sun back, and I welcome all criticisms.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you that last image that you sent through, you mentioned that there was only was there just 3 frames in the SURF file?
Yeah, I was fighting. Yeah, I was moving the tuner in and out and trying to see what was happening, and the clouds were coming, and so rather than run a big series, I was just taking a few frames, and I was kind of surprised how good they looked. Maybe they don't look good, but they were not bad at all in my mind. I was happy with them.
Well, that position of the last one for 2 frames stacked is fairly close to being on band, so I wouldn't go too far from there. So you need to be roughly in that position and start taking more frames. Take 500, that's fine, and stack 20, 25%, whatever you want to do. Keep that consistent, don't change. In the middle, don't start taking 1,000 frames and stacking 10% and all that. Just keep whatever you choose consistent until you get it right, and then you can move on from there.
Okay.
Now that camera in the information you sent, you're also using zero gain, were you? You were using zero gain?
I think I was at that time.
Yeah, well, I've had no experience with the 533 chip, so I can't comment there, but I think you should be using a little more gain than that, and you certainly need to double stack.
Okay. What I've seen on the Simon Tang or whatever his name is videos, and other people, they're talking about 8 milliseconds for the exposure, but then I've heard 5 to 8, and with my camera, then depending on your exposure length, the gain is going to change. Are there guidelines for how long the exposure should be?
Well, look,
typically as short as possible.
Okay.
But
without too much gain, whatever.
But yeah, I mean, that's going to vary with your local conditions. If it's a little bit hazy, you're like there's 1,000 variables that we just can't rubber stamp everybody using the same exposure, even with the same scope, because you're going to have. I personally use some gain just for the sake of keeping exposures down, but you do what works for you, and it might take you 20 long sessions to figure out, okay, under good conditions, this is what works for me. But then the next time you go out, you might have to tweak it a bit, because Mother Nature is constantly changing too many variables.
summer to winter.
Absolutely right there. There's, I wouldn't say 1,000, Brian, but yeah, there's quite a number of variables in there. So what if you're looking for the maximum frame rate, which is controlled by exposure, you're going to have to use some gain. So if you're getting maximum frame rate, let's say you're looking at 100 frames per second, you won't get that at 10 milliseconds. You might have to come back down to 8, 7.5 to 8, and to compensate for that, to get the histogram up to where you want it, you'll need to use gain. So it's just a trade-off.
Okay.
Now, if you're using a little bit more gain, take some more images. Jump up to 1,000 or 1,500 images, and that takes care of a lot of the noise.
Yeah, can I jump back to when you're on about when you've got a long, I forget name you used, but one problem I found with mine is with the weight of the cable to the camera. So what I do now, because I've got 3 telescopes on the same mount, I have an anchor point of a different telescope with a crocodile clip on. So the weight of the cable is taken by another telescope. So you're not getting any bending as you're traversing around. Now, the only thing I can think of as an engineer is if you're using a single telescope, then stick some Jubilee clips on it and a rod, and anchor off rod rather than off your focusing, and then you're taking weight of your cables doing that. So it might be worth having a little play with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a friend make a 3D little part for me that actually, on the ZWO cameras, you've got that little thread in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he made a little piece that actually I can put a little screw through that to hold it to, and it's actually got an attachment where the wires or your cables will go and hold there. So it'll actually take any pressure off. It's very, very handy.
I've got a question about AutoStacker. I've just switched to AutoStacker 4. Is everybody else using 4 now? Or
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes.
Yep.
so
I'm still on 3. When I had to go with 4, a lot of images I were getting all sorts of messes coming out, so I
right,
just abandoned it. And when I put the same image, same video through 3, it came out perfect.
right,
And what I do is, biggest problem I have is data management. So when I'm at observatory, I'm usually running AutoStacker at the same time as I'm imaging,
yeah,
and I process it straight away. So and I'll check before I dump the video files. But it's like today, I think I've done about 400 1.5 gigabyte files.
golly.
Wow.
600 gigs of data in it.
Yeah. So with 3, when you're looking through, when you're trying to select a file to process on AutoStacker 3, I can actually see thumbnails of the SCR files. So I know exactly, is it a calcium or a hydrogen alpha or whatever. But on AutoStacker 4, all I'm getting is a list rather than thumbnails. Is that the same for everybody, or is there some way of switching it?
What in order to make it easier to open the files, you go to File rather than open an AVI SCR, because that happened the same thing with me, that you get all this directory, right?
Yeah.
But then if you actually go to the menu,
Right.
then you can actually go traditionally looking for the directory the way you probably do it. I mean,
Right. So you can still use it the same as AutoStacker 3.
yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Thanks, Franco. I'll have a look at that.
Yeah, because I'm finding it really, really hard to find the ones that I really want to find, because it's just a list, and it's like, well, is it that one or is it that one? And I don't want to keep opening and then closing and going back to the next one. I'd rather see the thumbnails, and then I can choose from the thumbnails.
Right.
just easier. But okay, right, good
But
to know.
so that's in settings, is that right, Franco? It's in the settings?
I think, no, I actually think that if you, I mean, I don't have my, let me see if I can actually open up my laptop in 1 second.
Cheers, Franco.
Yeah, because I've never really, I can't even remember seeing that in 3, to be honest, but that could be handy actually.
Yeah, in 4, it's under file. If you click on file,
Yeah,
and work down to whatever it is Franco just said, that's where you'll find it, rather than just on open, because open doesn't work for me. I tend to do batches, so batch doesn't work in open. And when I was looking for batch, that's where I found the file SCR option in file.
Yeah.
Okay, and it brings to the thumbnails, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so instead of open, you go to file, like
Right.
Nick was saying.
Yep.
And then you go open AVI SCR.
Okay.
And then, yeah, then you can go to the directories, and depending on how your view is, yeah.
Yeah, that's handy enough. Thank you.
All right.
Learn something.
It was confusing. It was confusing also for me.
Right. I shall try that. There's nothing worse, is there? You've been using one particular application.
I hate change.
You switch to something better, and then it's like, whoa, hang on a minute. This isn't.
Why'd they change it?
Yeah,
it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yes, exactly.
It's very quick. It's very quick. So when you are doing animations and the yeah,
there's some advantages to it. Good.
Yeah.
Doing animations, if I had to use 3 again, it just takes too long. So much quicker. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Is anybody using any of the heated etalons? You know, either the Quark or the really expensive ones?
I had a solar spectrum for a while.
Yeah.
That's a story, Alexandra.
I'm using the Quark combo and the solar spectrum. I suppose spectrum right now is in repairs because the blocking filter failed miserably.
Oh.
And it took me months before he would actually take it for repairs. So I just sent it. I'm waiting now to hear when it's going to be ready. And, you know, I'm not going to use, I don't think I'm going to use the big scope for during the winter season. So it's going to be for next year. But then I use also this, the Quark combo, which is heated, obviously.
Okay.
As a backup to the large scope.
So, Franco, did you say your solar spectrum was in for repair as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's the second time. The first time, you know, it was that he gave me a filter that was spectacular. It was just incredible how good it was. And then it failed, the etalon crashed. And so it took him 18 months for him to actually give it back to me. It was a torture. So this time is the blocking filter that failed. And it took months to actually have him respond to take it for repair.
Oh, ouch.
I know. So we'll see. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and actually I have to contact him maybe tomorrow and see, you know, where we are with the repair.
Yeah, my Daystar Quantum has been down since April, having the etalon replaced. So that's an ongoing wait. But I have used a buddy's Quark over the summer. So I've had, you know, decade plus of the heated etalons. So I just wonder, Warren, apart from a survey, is there a question on tuning from the pressure or the heated ones?
Yeah, and I know it's a different animal as well. And I know that, you know, the folks that don't post, but, you know, come into the forum might be interested in that. That might be for another time because it's such a different animal.
Yeah.
The tilt.
They're just, the thing I didn't like about it is it's great if you want to image on band, you let it heat for 10 minutes in the case of the the quantum. But if you want to tune to the blue or tune to the red side of the spectrum, well, you got to wait 10 minutes, let it stabilize. And that's kind of why I stuck to the pressure tune modded scope. But I had the etalon, the 0.45 angstrom one, and it wasn't working properly, and it took me 2 years, and that's a whole different story with Daystar. But anyway, I went to Neat and I handed it to Jen, and I said, "This is a piece of junk." Yeah, and she agreed to repair it. So it's in her hands, waiting to whether it's going to be here Merry Christmas or here Valentine's Day, or I'll see her at lunch or Neat next year, and I don't know. But anyway, they're not just off the shelf to grab an etalon to put in it. So it's and since it's being done the way it's being done, I don't think she's dedicating 100% of her time to it either.
Well, the problem is that, you know, these are all, I mean, I don't know about Daystar. Maybe Daystar is actually bigger operation than Solar Spectrum, but Solar Spectrum is extremely small operation, very, very small. And I see that now they're doing also the calcium filters, and they have a bunch of lines of filters. So I guess it's difficult for them to, you know, survive, have to sell new filters, repair old filters, and all these filters are very finicky. You know, I mean, you know, it's kind of like, that's why it's frustrating. I mean, Alexandra, you had the Solar Spectrum for how long?
I had it for about 6 months before it went wrong, and then I've not had it now for 2 years.
Oh, you what? You had them?
No, I'm still waiting.
You're waiting?
Yeah.
2 years for a repair. Yeah.
Oh, 2 years. Yes, that's 2 years.
How long no torn off by now?
But they have it. So is it in Europe or is it in the US?
It's in the US.
Oh, it is in the
Oh,
US.
there's your problem.
They can't fix Franco's until they fix yours.
You know, we change our clocks every 6 months.
I think that's the problem with heated etalons, is that if your heater goes or you know, something like that, you've had it really. Whereas with a tilted etalon, you can always move it by hand. When you've got a heated etalon, you're completely reliant on, you know, electricity, the electrics, all of the system working, the heater working, the heater getting to the correct temperature properly, and also if you've got any sag in your system, obviously, you know, like the Quark has that central knob setting, and then it's got ±5 either way. And it's the same with, you know, like the solar spectrum. They give you a specific temperature where it's the center line is, but that's completely irrelevant if you've got even the slightest bit of sag in your system. So you always have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt, put it in, and then you have to systematically go through either side of that temperature and look and image and look and image and change the temperature, wait 10 minutes, image again, to actually fine tune it to where centerline is for your particular system. And then if you get a heater problem, then that's it. You then either have to like send it back to Daystar and hope for the best that the quark that you sent in is the quark that you get back, and etc. etc. And it is a whole different ball game.
So your one, Alexandra, did not heat up correctly, right? It did not reach temperature?
No, my etalon broke.
Oh, bro.
So it needs a completely new etalon. The mica had completely delaminated.
Yeah, because, you know, he had like, he started out some new system in which he thought that the mica should have processed and everything. And then that system completely failed. And my one also broke completely. But it was a phenomenal etalon before. So, but anyway.
Yeah, mine was lovely for 6 months I had it.
Could
But
you
then I
be,
didn't have much luck because I had a quark before that and the heater went on it. So I only had that for 3 months. So I haven't had much luck really.
could you be stuck with sanctions? Because I think a lot of mica comes from Russia, doesn't it?
It does, yes.
That might be a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure it is because I don't think that he's making mica etalons as big as he did before. And I think that's because the quality of the mica is not as good as it was before. So I don't know because he never really says, so I'm not really quite sure where the hold up, what the problem is or whatever. So I don't know.
I seem to remember hearing a phrase somewhere, look after your customers or somebody else will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be a niche there for somebody.
Mhm.
After 2 years,
Now,
goodness.
Alexander, you bought yours directly from a dealer or from somebody who had it?
I bought mine secondhand from somebody who bought it brand new and never used it.
I see.
So they'd never even got it out of the box because I could tell that because when I came to set it up, it was still on like the factory default, something like 10 degrees or something. And it said on the side that it had to be at something like about 38 degrees or something like that. So I had to crank it right up. So they'd never used it. Could tell that they'd never used it.
Nick, you're still waiting for your brand new Solarscope, sorry.
Yes.
So what?
Yeah.
So when you sent it back, did you send it back directly to Solar Spectrum or through a dealer?
It went back to Barda and then Barda have sent it back.
So he bought it from Bader, you sent it back through Bader. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, through
You know,
Germany.
He's got a relationship with Bader that I'm sure he wants to maintain.
But yeah, I think Nick's also having a problem, and that's
Brand
a tilt-tuned solar scope, and that's just spending eternity to be built as well. So I think it's across the board. All of the, like the solar manufacturers are really seem to be struggling with different things at the moment. I've no idea
Very
why.
finicky, very delicate, very finicky, very, yeah. And we suffer because we pay lots of money.
Alexander, I think they're just waiting for you to get to solar minimum before you get it back.
Yes. I think that's the same with
Not
Nick.
funny, not funny.
Wow. The sad part is that it's such a niche market. Like you would argue, like I think Andy said or whatever, like somebody else should be able to make these and put, satisfy the market. But it's such a small scale and high end technical capabilities. And we're down now to, Coronado's out of the market. So you got Blunt doing the pressure tube scopes. And then you got a couple of manufacturers doing heated etalons. Now I see Skywatchers come out with some form of a solar scope, but I haven't looked into the details of it. But there's just not a lot of places to go. And if you're dissatisfied with the service you get from the company you're dealing with, well, you don't have anybody else to go to.
Right. I mean, there is
if it's a simple electrical connection, like, oh, I nicked the cable, well, sure, you can get that fixed. But as soon as it's inside, you're screwed.
Brian, oh, sorry.
And I was just going to say, like, of all the ones that I've dealt with Daystar on multiple occasions, and I've dealt with Lunt since they started introducing scopes, the very first ones. Lunt is by far and wide the easiest to deal with. They follow up on what they say they're going to do. They don't take forever. And if something comes back and it's still not quite right, it doesn't sit on their shelf for another 6 months to look at it. They get it back and they fix it. And I will give Lunt and Brian Stevens at Lunt major credit for the way they deal with the paying customer.
Well, I had a different experience with Lunt. I got like a small 50 that I kind of like portascope, and I used it for visual and it was fine. and for imaging was an absolute dog, complete dog. So the etalon was totally uneven. So I went, I sent it back, and they said they fixed it. They changed the, blocking filter and everything. It was still a dog, and so I had to sell it and actually get a 40 because the 40 is much better than the 50 for what I, can use. But so for me, my experience with Lant was not great. They made me wait 9 months to actually get a 40, but it's a good 40. So, but I mean, it's it's. I mean, the Skywatcher. I think that I think people should look into it because at least it's a very large company, right? So there is some structure behind that, not just a 2-man or 4-man shop. So at least you're talking to a large company. So I don't know, just my thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's still kind of vaporware. I don't know that you can actually get one if you ask for it for a while yet, but I'm waiting to see when my Daystar comes back. But I've basically maxed out on equipment at this point in life. So what I have is what I'll continue with, I think.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Well, my experience with Lunt has been very, very good as well. So I'll give them a plus there.
I'm gonna have to call it a night.
Pardon?
Okay.
I'm gonna have to call it a night, guys. So...
Wow, an hour's gone already. Wow.
I know.
Time flies.
Everybody.
See you, Stuart.
All right.
Great discussion. Yeah. Cheers, everyone.
Hopefully you got the questions answered.
Great to see you all.
Yes.
Bye.
Yep.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everybody.
All righty.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Everybody.
Dropping like flies.
So a few people gone
We
then.
can stay with the half of the dirty dozen here.
Oh,
If we're staying, huh?
well, I thought it was ending. Okay.
So
I
right
think
then.
just Stuart was leaving.
Yeah.
I
Everybody.
I have
Yeah,
a
well, look-
question.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I have a
No, you go
question
ahead.
back to the, sorry.
Go on, Rick.
No,
Back
go
to
on.
the auto stacker. Does anybody have a rule of thumb for how many of the subs to actually stack? Or do you look at the curve and pick only the very best? I've read about you take the 50%, anything above 50%, but lately I've been trying to do like wherever the curve crosses the 75% quality line and just taking those. Does that make much of a difference? Because I know the bad ones are really bad, but I'm wondering how fine a point to put on that.
You use enough to get the noise to where you want it, because if you add poor frames, it's just going to make the image worse. Some people, I mean, use, depending upon what the seeing is, some people use maybe 10 to 15 total frames and they're happy, they're happy with the background. I typically use about, if I shoot 500 frames, I typically go between 25 to 50 of those frames to stack. So about 10 to 15%.
Less than 10%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always shoot about 1,000 and always take the top 5%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm doing somewhere between, if I do 500 frames, I'm doing probably 50 to 75. So that's typically what I use.
I use 7.5%, but I'm different to everybody, I guess, because I shoot 2,000 frames. And the 432 camera will do that. It'll handle 125 frames a second at 8 bits, and SAW files at 16 bit. Well, it's only 14 bit, I think. It's all 87 to 90 frames a second. I always religiously shoot 2,000 frames, and I find that the graphs look a lot better. So you've got an extended period of time where that if the seeing's bad for 450 frames, you've still got 1500 to go. Whereas if you're just shooting 500, you've only got that small window of getting a reasonable result. That's what I call it anyway. So with the high frame rate cameras, yep, I'm just not afraid to. I wouldn't be afraid to go up if the thing's a bit off. I might go to 3,500-4,000 frames because you've got that chance, and they call it lucky imaging, which I think is the worst possible term. Some idiot scientist, sorry, Alexandra, come up with that. And it's not, there's no luck in it at all. You know, we spent a lot of money on equipment and a lot of time learning and finding out the best way to do stuff. But anyway, that's lucky imaging. So within that period of time of 3,500 frames, if you go that far, you've got a better chance of picking up 7.5 to 10% or whatever you're going to stack. And I know a lot of people will argue against that, but that's the way I've always found it.
I think that's a good idea if you've got a very high frame rate camera. But if you're taking like 3,000 to 4,000 frame video files and you've got a very slow camera that's taking 15 frames per second, you're going to be so long that the solar landscape will have completely changed by the time you've got to the end of the file. So you'll end up then getting smearing and blurring of your image because you've got like that movement distortion. So I think
that's quite right, Alexandra. Now where it all started from, I think, back in the day when we moved from the webcam things up into DMK 21s, DMK 51s, all those cameras, low frame rate cameras. So, you know, the best we could get, I think, remember DMK 51 might have been 28 frames to 30 frames a second. So that window of opportunity that I'm talking about, 500 frames. Now we've got a camera that'll do 120 frames a second. We can go times 4, times 5. Same period of time that we're imaging. I generally, as well, won't go over 30 seconds solar work, and particularly at 35, where I spend most of my time, because after the data suggests that you can go up to a minute without any substantial change. I think the data might be wrong. I think you start to get smearing after about 40 seconds or so. And of course, depending on how active that one is. But that's how I've worked that out over a period of time. And I've basically come back and that's my go-to standard with that particular camera is 2,000 frames. Now, Rick might be you're in a different boat because your camera, I think, maximum frame rate you're at is about 60 frames. Is that right?
Who is that?
Yeah, I think I get 60 about.
About 65. So okay, all right. Well, you're in a position now where you're going to have to deal with that. So you come back to say maybe between 500 and 1,000 frames. If the seeing's a bit poor, go up to 1,000. If the seeing's good, come back to 500.
Yeah.
And that'll put you in that window.
Yeah, I'll take more, probably 1,000. More than 1,000 might be too bad, but you know, my original question in terms of how picky I should be in terms of how many to stack really is based on the deep space work that I do, because I might have 150 frames that are ready to stack, but I'll blink them and throw out the ones that clearly are not up to snuff. Because if those would ever get stacked by mistake, it would actually ruin the picture. And I'm just wondering whether it's the solar imaging is that particular, where you really only must stack the good frames. If you can mess the whole thing up if you put a couple bad ones in there.
I think
You
that
did
with
men-
your, oh, sorry, the auto stacker, what you can do is that you can set it to do the top 1%, top 2%,
Right, I know.
top 5%, and then just do that yourself. Just process them and go, is the top 1% good? Is the top 2%, 5%, and 10%, which looks better? And
Yeah.
usually most people do that under their conditions of their telescope and their seeing conditions, and then go, oh, well, if I go up to 10%, then I just get rubbish blurring. But if I actually go up to 1%, I get really crystal clear images, but you know, like the because you're stacking so few, you get really
Noise.
grainy, noisy images. So there's sort of like a balance, and everybody's telescopes and systems are so different that you've got to work it out for yourself. And so AutoStack is a good one of being able to do that and assessing what's good for you.
Yeah, I've done what you're suggesting. I think like 5, 10, all the way up to 50%. But I think the other problems I was having trying to get on band and everything kind of screwed everything up, because I could hardly tell a difference
Yeah, sure.
at the different rates.
Yeah.
I've got a question. What method of capture do you prefer? Because you use a Saturn M, don't you, Warren?
What was
I
that,
do
Andy?
too.
I
Yeah.
say you're using a Saturn M camera, aren't you, Warren?
Yeah.
What are you using, sharp cap or fire capture with it?
I use fire capture, and for full discs I get about 42 frames per second. So I always do an ROI when I do my animations, so I can get up around 100. Around that.
When I use mine on full frame, I can get right up to 4.5 frames a second on sharp cap.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
all I get.
Yeah.
But I'll try it on fire capture. Yeah.
So you don't use fire capture?
No, I've tend to use sharp cap.
Okay.
I use sharp cap for that same reason.
Yeah, Rich uses sharp cap and I use fire capture. My preference would be fire capture. I find it an easier one to work with.
Okay. It sounds like it's a lot faster, but I don't know if it's the software or the old laptop of mine that's causing problem.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think it might be your laptop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I would
be.
suggest that.
I think I might need to change O-rings where steam comes through it.
I think so. And hello, Michael. I think
Hi,
an hour
Michael.
and 20 minutes late.
What are you on daylight savings time, Michael?
No, I'm on forgot about the meeting time. And I completely chanced my arm at joining. I know it never goes beyond the hour normally. And I just said I'll take a punt, and I was surprised I was let in. So,
Well, you're here with half the audience gone because half the people dropped out at an hour. So
yeah.
Right.
I mean,
it's all
yes, we
finished.
really must close up. But hot off the press, seem to be getting a lot of aurora alerts. So keep your eyes out on the aurora alerts at the moment.
There were
during the meeting, got up to red at 200. So
wow.
It's dropped a little bit now. So
there
keep
were
your eyes out.
just shy of X class this dinner time that I've stuck on Solarchat, but it looks like looks like it's through something our way.
Wow.
So yes, if you've got clear skies, keep your eyes open on the aurora charts. But yes, we'll have to, I think, call it a day because
good time, folks.
I know. It's lovely to chat with everyone, isn't it? So
Great to see you all.
Yeah.
Thank you for the help.
Yeah, welcome, Rich.
Good luck, Rich.
Yes.
We just need the sun now.
Yes, we do.
Bye, Mike. Good to see you.
Bye all.
Take care, folks.
Bye.
Bye all.
Nice chatting to you, Warren.
Bye-bye.
Bye.